All right, good afternoon. I'm going to call the September 11th, 2024 meeting of Yolo County and the City of Davis to order. Let the record show that it's 12:06. We'll also turn to my right and my left. We have Supervisor Frericks, Councilmember Partita, and Supervisor Provenza here. So we have our quorum, and everyone that is supposed to be here is here and present. Agenda item number 2 is designation of chair for the day. I was designated last time as we rotate through. So unless there's somebody who really wants to jump over here and take the mic, we'll continue as being the chair. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
So, are we adjusting stuff on the agenda, or
Oh, yeah. Yes. So, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so a couple different things we're going to move around. I think we're going to, Nolan Sullivan is going to be late to the meeting today, so he is agenda item 6C. We're going to move that down to below F. And if he's not here at that time, we'll go to the Board of Supervisors, City Council, Communications, and then we'll go to Nolan after that if he is not here at that time. And I think that was it for, there's Nolan right there. So we'll keep the agenda in the order. See, I knew he was going to be on time for you. Jeez. All right, so we have a motion by Supervisor Provenza, a second by Supervisor Frericks. Any other discussion on our agenda? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 4-0. We have an agenda. Agenda item number 4, approval of the March 2024 minutes. Do we have any edits or changes to the minutes that are here in front of us from our last meeting? If not, I will entertain the motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Frericks, second by Supervisor Provenza. Any other discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 4-0. All right, we're on to agenda item number 5, general public comment. General public comments for any item that is not listed on the agenda. Do we do 2 or 3 minutes here? 3?
Yeah, no more than 3.
No more than 3 minutes. If anybody is here who would like to make a general public comment, please come to the lectern. All right. Not seeing any, we will close general public comment and move to agenda item number 6, which is the meat of our agenda today. We have discussion items. So there's a number of discussion items here. I'm going to also mention that Gerardo Pineda, who is our CAO, or CEO of the county, is not feeling well and is not here today. And so we have Mark Bryant, who is going to fill in for Gerardo. And with that, we're going to turn to Mark for the first discussion item. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, Council Member, and Supervisors. Mark Bryan, Deputy County Administrator. I do have, thank you for having me today, I do have one introduction to make. Sarah Pelly, the new CEO of the Yolo County Fairgrounds. I'll just briefly say and then ask her to come up and say a few words that the CEO's office and CEO Pineda and has had contact. We're building on that relationship. In fact, we think we even have now a reinstituted and strengthened relationship with regards to services and agreements between the county and the fairgrounds about emergency services and sheltering and things like that. So it's a very good relationship. We're very happy for Sarah to be here. And with that, I'll ask her to maybe come up and say a few words.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. As I said, I'm Sarah Pelly. I am the new CEO of Yolo County Fairgrounds. I will be there a year in November. So we just went through my first fair at Yolo County Fair, and we had a fantastic attendance. Luckily, the weather was fantastic. We had almost 100,000 people come through the gates in 5 days, which is about almost 20,000 more than last year. So I'm really taking the time to meet everyone in the community of Yolo County. Yolo County Fair has really been a woodland fair. And so I'm really pushing it out to the entire county and making sure that everyone is engaged for all cities in the county. And so our motto is it gets better every year. And so I've really taken that to heart to really increase and build upon our Yolo County Fair. And then also we're year-round, we're a rental facility. So we're a state facility that receives 4% of our budget from the state. Otherwise we have to generate it ourselves. So outside of fair, we are a rental facility year-round. As well. So thank you for the introduction and looking forward to meeting everyone throughout Yolo County.
Thank you, Sarah. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments for Sarah or Mark on this item?
Great work. Just a occurs to me 100,000 is almost half the population of Yolo County. So either everybody in Yolo County is going, or we're also getting some folks from other counties. Do you know which it is? Both?
And it's a combination. We're running the analytics to kind of see where folks are from. But my concept this year, since we're a free gate fair, every day of fair is different. So there's different activities to participate in every day of fair. So we have a lot of repeat business that people come to the fair multiple days as well. But we are going through all of the data that we have to see where all of those bodies come from.
That's great, and as I understand it, we are still one of the few counties, or not the only county, where we don't charge an admission fee.
We are the only county in California that does not charge an admission fee at the Yolo County Fair.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the few costs that hasn't gone up in the past year, so I appreciate that. Sarah, congrats on such a successful launch this year for you and your first fair. I think I wasn't able to attend the opening night gala this year, but everyone reported it was fantastic. But also was able to head out to the fair on Thursday, the next day, and which again, your point about the weather this year was pretty right on. It was beautiful weather this year. And some years in August, it is not as cool as it was this year for the fair. So appreciate that. The question I think I also have just is around, I think there's a few things. One, how are things, I would say, rebounding from the pandemic, right? So again, reinstituted obviously you talked about attendance a little bit, but I think the gala obviously had been off for, and had been on and off and on and off, and sort of reinstituted this year. So just curious about sort of that activity or others that are, sort of you're seeing some either changes that you helped institute, or I know for one quick example is that for many years I think CHP was responsible for security at the fairgrounds, and this year the Yolo County Sheriff's Department had responsibility for that contract again. So just curious about some of those types of changes that either you've instituted or you're seeing. Sort of just appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Definitely, the Yolo County Sheriff's Office did come back this year. They were partnering with us much more than CHP. They gave us a much more bill that we could swallow and could afford, and they were phenomenal. Normally we have issues with outside food vendors and folks outside of our gates causing issues, but they were completely on board with keeping anybody that was on state property that wasn't supposed to be there off of our grounds, and we had very few incidences during fair, and they were willing to actually actively participate and work with us to work through any issues that happen. So we definitely had a better relationship this year with the Sheriff's Department taking over security. Most of the public was very excited to have them back. And so it was a huge partnership to have them, and we were very happy to have them, and we have a 5-year contract with them. So we're happy to have that. The gala was a huge success. Normally there's about 25 vendors. We had 40 vendors this year participating, and we had almost 600 attendees for the gala, and that's our opening night event. Thursday night when you were there was a new event that I instituted, the beer and wine showcase. So we had 21 beer, wine, spirits, mead, all made in Yolo County at this event. And as a first-time event, we had about 170 tickets sold for that. The other big thing is our derby. We're known for our derby at Yolo County. Saturday sells out pretty quickly within a couple of hours, and Friday sells out within like 2 weeks. So that was both a sold-out show. There's a little bit of derby drama, but we're working through that to make that even a better show for next year. And then Sunday, I added Kids Power Wheels Derby. So kids and Power Wheels, we had attached balloons to them, so it's kind of like Mario Kart. And we had kids all the way from 3 to 11 in their age brackets, bouncing into each other, trying to pop their balloons. We sold 600 tickets. It was a $5 show, and it turned out phenomenal. It was super cute, and we've listened to the feedback. We're going to make it a little earlier in the day next year, but it was completely adorable. And as a free gate fair, we rely a lot on volunteers, so a lot of people were like, we didn't even know that this happened or whatnot. My media person resigned about 2 2 months before fair. So everything you saw on Facebook was me, all the reels were me, so I took on media and pushing it out. So we are working through how to really increase our social media presence so people know all the things we do. As a free gate fair, we really spend very little on social media and all of that, so that's all in-house. So we're really working on pushing that out and growing our presence so people know that we're there and all the fun things that we're doing. We really focused on filling up the grounds this year. Last year, Expo Hall was pretty empty, and so we actually closed Expo Hall and Ag Business. For those that came to the fair, folks asked me if we got a new building. We took the sides off of it, we wrapped all of the columns in redwood, and it looks like a brand new building and became a vendor marketplace. And so that was a huge hit this year as well. And next year we'll be focusing on the insides of the buildings, all the exhibits, and pushing those forward and really figuring out unique ways to display those. We had about 1,800 entries, which is way up from last year. But only 1,200 of them actually showed up and dropped off their items. So figuring out the communication piece of making sure everyone understands drop off and pick up and all of that with exhibits. But we had a huge increase in the amount of exhibits this year.
That's great, thank you. And I would take this more, I think I would throw out a challenge, the 5 Davis City Council members versus the 5 supervisors in a Power Wheel Derby race-off. I think that'll sell out faster than any Derby ticket.
I'm happy to bring my first place Yolo County award-winning applesauce routine, regular year after year, first place ribbon. We'll do that as a prize.
I like it.
Okay.
There you go. And you'll be there. You can be the ref. How about that?
Oh, okay.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate all your hard work. We're now on to discussion item 6B, student housing discussion, and I'm going to turn to Supervisor Provenza.
Yes, this matter was brought to us several months ago now when we met with a 2x2x2 city, county, and university. And part of that discussion every year is student housing. And there were some students that came to us and requested that students actually be included in that discussion, not just the 2x2x2, but that we have one student or two students participate in housing discussions. So I thought I would bring that to this group.
Sure, thank you. Do any of my colleagues have questions or comments?
I do. I think it's a great idea to always include students in conversations. We try to include them on our commissions as much as possible. I guess I'm wondering about the access points. Like, where would we have that? Where would they be on? Like, where would we have those discussions?
I think the initial request was for the 2x2x2 with the university, that we include a couple of students in that. Next, at least that portion of the discussion where housing is discussed, so that would entail us making a request to the university since they're the third party if both the city and the county agree.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I think it probably for not less about ease, but just sort of in terms of would probably make sense to have sort of have that invitation being sent to ASUCD. I mean, I think that's I think it has to be through sort of the sort of like official entity, not just like two students participate. I mean, they got to have some sort of affiliation. I would say with with the student government would be my guess, or would seem to make sense. And obviously it's a request that would need to come from the city and the county, and sort of to the university to see if that's a possibility. But I think that it would be important to have those voices added to the mix of our discussions, certainly.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of engaging with the university and the county about scheduling the next 2x2x2 town meeting for early next year. So I think we're targeting January again for that next meeting. We're happy to take lead in having that conversation with the university leadership and to see if we can't make arrangements accordingly. And then the other opportunity I think coming up is our general plan update. So we're in the throes right now of narrowing down the field of and then ultimately awarding a contract to a consultant team to help the city navigate its next general plan update. So there will undoubtedly be key opportunities in that process to include and engage, the student housing population as part of that. And that, of course, leads right into our next housing element, which is going to be in front of us before we know it. So lots of really good opportunities there as well, so that we can make sure that we plan for it.
So I guess then it would be maybe reaching out to ASUCD, ask to designate a couple of representatives that could then participate in that process, and also 2x2x2, assuming the university goes along with it.
I think so. I think that sounds like exactly the right steps. And ASUCD, and to your point, Supervisor Frerichs, is probably the appropriate avenue. And once we have the first initial conversation with the university, of course, and to your point.
Okay, thank you. That sounds good.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Okay, and I forgot to mention when we first started this, I will take public comment on this item. We'll get through the discussion items, and then I'll open up public comment for agenda item number 6. Okay, 6C, homelessness point in time study results, city, county, city collaboration discussion. We'll turn to Nolan Sullivan. Welcome.
If I may, Mayor, real quick, as Nolan gets set, really looking forward to, and thank you, Nolan, for making it over to provide an update to all the members. We will follow up with something in writing from the county, kind of shoring up the county's place and as also its commitment, so that the city has that on record as well.
Thank you.
All right. Mike, you want me to drive? Do you mind? I'll just tell you if that goes out. All right, well, thank you so much for the time today. I've got a couple different presentations for you. I think the first one is I'm going to share a little bit of baseline information, and really the intention here today is actually to kick off a discussion amongst the electeds. So the other piece I'll be sharing in just a second is we have a Davis-specific version of the PIT count, which has Davis-specific data, and I'll be sharing this with you and the public at the end of this presentation. So my name is Nolan Sullivan. I'm the Health and Human Services Director for Yolo County. I apologize for being a little bit late today. Thank you for being accommodating. The first slide we have here is actually, this is the first time that we've used GIS or electronic data means for our point in time count. And so for those of you that don't know what the point in time count is, every 2 years, the entire nation actually gets together, and you literally have an army of volunteers that go out and they literally do a hand census. They go out and they identify folks that are homeless within various communities. That's broken down all the way down in what's called a COC, which is a continuum of care. So Yolo County's Continuum of Care did our most recent point in time count in January of 2024. I have some bad news. The bad news is, like much of the rest of the nation in California, homelessness across the county is growing. Davis, there are some bright spots, and we'll talk about those specific bright spots in just a second. But Yolo County's 2024 point in time count for homelessness was 939 individuals living in homelessness in Yolo County. So that's slightly up. I'll tell you about that on the next slide. The reason I mentioned GIS versus paper right when I first started talking, historically what we've done is a paper count. So you walk out with a clipboard, you've got a pen, you do your tallies and your surveys. Now we actually have iPads or an app on a phone, and so it's really easy now to geo-pin where the homelessness, or where you're experiencing homelessness, or where you're exhibiting folks experiencing homelessness. And that also adds some complications to our counts this year, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So if you wanted to know where homelessness is in Yolo County, this map identifies where homelessness has been counted in 2024. And the colors of the dots have a variety of different meanings. Sorry, it's a bit of an eye test to see the little chart there. But red is unsheltered, blue is visual, meaning we just visually saw folks, we didn't engage those folks. Green means sheltered, so someone actually living in a place like Fourth and Hope, or Davis Community Meals, or Paul's Place. And then other is some sort of like unidentified, kind of couldn't classify what the situation was. So ideally we do our best to engage with folks. They don't have to engage with us, they don't have to answer our questions, they don't have to talk to us. And in some cases, for a variety of reasons, whether that's terrain or visibility or whatever, we don't actually engage with folks. We'll just do a visual count from a distance or from a car. But the best way to do it is to actually go out and engage with folks, ask questions, do a survey. I think a couple of you have actually been out on point in time counts before, so you know this process pretty well. Next slide, please. Here's the highlights here. So again, I said Yolo is at 960 or 939. We are up from 746 in 2022, unfortunately. So we have increased homelessness across the county by almost 200 participants. You can kind of see where that is. It's kind of broken down on this chart here in a variety of places. The good news for Davis is your numbers are slightly down. So you went from 181 to 162. Don't celebrate yet. I can tell you why that is, and it's probably not, yes. You guessed the right answer there. And so again, the last point in time count we did, there were 181 homeless folks identified in Davis. There are now 162. The good news, bad news, is that 28 folks, you have 28 less folks sheltered. So we found 28 more folks out on the streets this time around, and an increase of 9 in the unsheltered count. So more people living outside. A lot of this is because of COVID and ARP funds. We had lots of things like Project Home Key, Room Key, motels. Unfortunately, between the last count and now, we're running out a lot of those resources. So we are seeing more folks on the streets and unsheltered. Again, there was a slight drop in Davis, but as Supervisor Ferricks mentioned, that drop really is because of using GIS. So we've had a couple encampments that are right on the county-city line. If you're on this side of the street, it's the city. If you're on that side of the street, it's county. In the county's count, you can see that the unincorporated actually went up, and a lot of that is due in fact to using GIS. So unfortunately, across the board in Yolo County, homelessness is growing. You can also see in other areas, West Sacramento, Woodland, or Winters in the rural area, kind of what's happening, but unfortunately across the board, we're seeing some fairly marked increases that just makes this task all the more vital for us to take on. Next slide, please. This is where folks were counted in Davis. I won't share a whole lot here. This probably tracks with your experience as a city council member or a supervisor doing the city. This is where the major encampments were found or folks were counted on that one particular evening in 2024. Again, if you look in the upper left corner there's that blue dot right on the county line. So again, this is where folks have been observed to be homeless, or we've engaged with them and done a survey. So just kind of helpful with GIS now actually seeing where the sites are at. So again, a pretty big hot spot kind of right around where we're sitting here, which is no surprise, and then some encampments interspersed throughout the rest of the community. And then that concludes my presentation on the point in time count. I am going to hand out the Davis pit count specifically for this group in just a second. I'm going to give you a really quick update on Pacifico, and I will stop talking and open it up for discussion amongst the electeds. So really quickly pivoting to Pacifico, it's a 1 slide or 2 slide update. Pacifico is back on. We're really excited. So it was off for quite a while. We weren't sure if we were going to revive the project. The building officials from the county and the city have worked their magic and have found some obscure building code that allows us to move forward, which is fantastic. So the project is back on. We are meeting with an architect now again, and we have actually started some preliminary designs. The good news is the project is back on. The bad news is the clock is ticking. So Supervisor Ferricks often asks me about show me the money. We have money this fiscal year only. So for a limited time of this fiscal year, if we can get this thing built, we have the funding to build it. If we miss our mark July 1st, 2025, then we may not have the funding to build it. So the city staff and the county staff are back on, hot and heavy, trying to get this thing rocking and rolling. We need to spend those funds this year. So some good news, some bad news, some pressure on our construction teams. I think there's 1 or 2 more slides just to show you a real quick pivot in the design. One pivot we're going to make, I think, and we want to make sure the electeds were aware of this change, is we are actually looking to convert Building B. So there's Building A and Building B. Building A was still a 22-room dormitory style temporary housing facility for young parents. We are proposing to convert Building B into a little more of a longer-term living environment, less dormitory style. So you can see here we're actually proposing 5 separate units that have their own bathrooms, their own closet, a little more space, a little more studio-ish. And these are designed for longer-term living. It's not necessarily temporary. So we've been working through these plans. You can see a variety of options the architects presented now. But each would include essentially a kitchenette, their own restroom, a little more storage, and ideally a bedroom. So a small studio or 1-bedroom unit on the 2nd and 3rd floors. So this is the 2nd floor of Building B. You can also see some furniture and other schematics we'll probably have in those bedrooms. Think, nice hotel suite or a larger hotel suite is kind of what we're going for instead of kind of tiny dorm room for this one building. And next slide, please, really quickly. This just shows some other options for the 3rd floor. Surprisingly, the 2nd and 3rd floor aren't identical, so there's just some slight variations that we have to make, and we have some different options here. So I think we end up with 4 units, potentially maybe 5 units on the 3rd floor, but for a variety of reasons, we have to do like some central laundry and a few other things. So in Building B only, we're making some slight revisions. Again, these are just architectural renderings so far. We'll have plans to bring back to both boards and councils probably in the next month or 2. and then we're gonna start moving to construction and engineering documents. At which time would be a perfect time to also engage the public. So as we do have some firm drawings, we would like to loop back, and we promise to meet with a variety of public groups to kind of look at our plans. We're getting pretty darn close to that point again. So we'll connect with your offices to get that on the books. But that is the latest and greatest on Pacifico, and that is my last slide, I believe, on this topic.
Thank you, Nolan. I will turn to my colleagues for questions or comments for Nolan and Steve.
What's on the first floor of that building with the?
So great question. First floor is exactly the same as it was. It'll be ADA rooms, and that's how we actually get our, we work some of the ADA access in the building. One will have a larger kitchen kind of cafeteria space with some community space for either childcare or schooling, and the other will have some staff offices on the bottom floor in addition to some ADA rooms. So by and large, the bottom floors stay the same.
And what is that, in those layouts, what does it kind of get you for a total unit count in B?
It drops us from 44 to like in the mid to low 30s, we think. So it doesn't change the one building that much, but it's still north of 30, which is pretty good. And again, I believe those will count towards the arena as well, which is always helpful.
Yeah. And is the idea that those, once those are built, they would, those would get filled with folks moving out of A and then go into B, or would you fill B? Because that sounds like a little more.
That is kind of the idea. Right? The idea really is to sort of, is to almost kind of have like a screening process, sure. Right? So for families that are really stable and successful and are working well on the property, they would be able to move into building B on kind of a longer term, more semi-permanent operation. So that is kind of the idea.
Right, and so do you, I guess, a little bit deeper, do you foresee that being, you currently are running CalWorks programs, right? There are families who are moving through it. When building B is ready for move-in, would you be moving people in who are already in the CalWorks program that you screen to be ready to move in? Or, okay, so it's not, it wouldn't be empty until people from A were stable and could move into B.
Theoretically, yeah. And we may have some other families that are in the process as we're in construction that are ready, they're still on CalWorks. Ideally, once they graduate off CalWorks, hopefully, and actually have enough income, they don't need it, they probably couldn't stay any longer, so we'd have some sort of 3 to 6 month exit or some other way to kind of transition that. But that is kind of the initial game plan, is to keep folks that are a little more stable in their longer term.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Supervisor Furman?
The original design for the building A, what did we do to solve the bathroom problem in that building?
It'll have 4 separate bathrooms. Each floor will have 4 separate bathrooms, and they will have their own 4 like laundry closets as well. So we will no longer have the dormitory style bathrooms. Every bathroom will have its own bathtub, as well as a shower, sink, toilet separately. So each floor, the bottom floor has 2 bathrooms, so it'll have 10 bathrooms total throughout the entire building A. So it's 4 separates on the 2nd and 3rd floor.
What has to happen by the end of the year on the funding? Do we have to have it completed, or just start the construction?
We have to make sure Ryan does what he needs to do. So we get either construction or encumbrances, and Ryan could probably talk a little more about how to do that.
Well, Ryan Piscini, Director of General Services, responsible for capital projects at the county. For Pacifico, so we are in design, and we're really excited moving forward and working with city staff as well. We expect end of this calendar year, we'll have construction documents ready, go out to bid around January or so, get the responses back from those bids, end of February, early March, be able to execute construction contracts in the end of this fiscal year. That will allow us to secure the money that Nolan has for this, and then the construction timeline, we don't have a schedule for that yet. We're waiting to see what comes back from the engineers on the scope of changes needed.
So we'll be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish in terms of if we stay on that schedule.
If we stay the course, we'll be able to. We'll have this completed in 2025, all of 2025. The key goal that I'm laser focused on right now is securing the money by getting a construction contract encumbered before the end of this fiscal year. And then finding every opportunity to shorten the timeline as much as possible so this space is occupied and used for the benefit of everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good work.
Any other questions for Ryan before he? And then Supervisor Ferris?
Yeah, just appreciate the updates, especially on Pacifico. That is promising, so looking forward to hoping moving forward. I think I get two questions, one on Pacifico and then one on just the point in time count. On the Pacifico item, what do we need to do in terms of anything you need to, from the on the county side to ensure that this is moving forward, right? So we need support from the board. I mean, does it need to come back to the board? Does it need, commitment letter from the board or the county to the city? I mean, around, sort of making sure this happens and so curious about that, just what's one. And then actually, I'll let you guys answer that first, and then I've got an item on the point in time.
I think as far as what's county staff need from the county, we're good to go. We're moving. The Davis team has been very helpful. Really, really big shout out and word of gratitude to the chief building official in both the city and the county for getting creative and digging through the reams of building code. I think really it's just we need to be expeditious and move. We did give a full briefing to the Capital Improvement Committee, Chair Ferrix, and we let them know the funding issues as well. And poor Ryan, I think, has a project list of 100 projects long. We let them know this isn't maybe the most important, but it's got to be spent this year. So I think the committee was very receptive to that. I think staff are understanding that as well. So I think at this point, the county staff are good to go. And like I said, the city staff have been great to work with. The city manager, I don't know if you have anything to add to the city side, but I think it's just time and hopefully no surprises in the architectural process and the engineering process, and we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I'll just echo that, the county staff team has been very diligent in following up and having regular routine just about every other week. I think meetings with our staff team, with Dana Bailey, with the building official and so forth as needed to, with the architect, with the county's architect and so forth to work through all this. That's been fantastic, truly appreciated. And what I could see being advantageous for the city as we map out the next steps for the other two buildings that are currently occupied, but we want to make longer term plans for, is to perhaps have a brief write-up on all what was just sort of described. I know we have a couple slides here, but that would be would think that would be very instrumental for us as we work through the timing and next steps, and we want to collaborate and coordinate our efforts on the other two buildings and what we ultimately do with those as much as possible with the county and the county's schedule and funding timing and so forth. So just having that brief write-up along those lines, I think would be very helpful. Nothing that hasn't already been said here, but just having it in one spot, easy to reference would be great.
Thanks, appreciate that. And then just if it's possible to go back to the chart that shows both the Davis, yeah, I think that's the chart that I think is needed. So, I mean, great news that we now are recording individuals sort of observed or when we have contact with them through vis-a-vis GIS. That's important. Like that's a big upgrade because it used to be done all on paper basically. And that's, I think, when we had some challenges around the numbers, around just where people actually were geographically located, actually inside individual cities or sort of on the periphery and sort of unincorporated county. So that's a big upgrade and appreciate all that good work. The question that I have is around this, again, this issue of, well, two questions. First, so we'll just use the Davis numbers. So combined, so 162 in homelessness on a single night. So 162 counted, but then 72 in the rural area, we'll say winters and or rural area. So since we are doing GIS sort of counting now, how many of those 72 are on the borders of Davis in the county? I mean, we've got to have that information, I assume. And that's true for all of the jurisdictions. So I mean, I know I've raised this before, especially around the winters issue. Just, we know the numbers in winters, it's around 20 or so in that range, it's little less than 20 or so individuals. But just, I think it would be really important for each of the three jurisdictions, West Sacramento, Davis, and Woodland, to know, yeah, you've got, the point in time count is 162 for Davis, but there's also, give or take 30 people on the edge of the city that are in the county officially, but yet are still, for purposes of services and other things, basically, we'll say, covered under the city of Davis, total population, number. So hoping that makes sense, but I do think that it would be helpful to, if those numbers are broken out somewhere.
Yes, I don't have it handy today, but we certainly can do that. I think that is a great tee up to the rest of this discussion, because what happens then if the county sheriff does a crackdown in the unincorporated, those numbers very quickly escalate in Davis. If the city of Davis does a crackdown, those numbers very quickly escalate in the county, and so this is a great entry point or question to, I think, kick off some of the conversation as well. Even though folks, like you mentioned, are classified in the Winters or rural, and Winters is probably under 20 or under, I would say the rest really are on the peripheries of cities, although there's a few in Dunnigan. Depending on the night and law enforcement, those numbers fluctuate dramatically, right? So there are very large encampments on the edges of most woodland, or most YOLO cities. And again, folks have kind of wisened up to sweeps. They know where the borders are at, they know where the lines are at. You know, Winters has the added challenge of Pewter Creek and then Solano County, but I think your question is well taken, and that is a great starting point, I think, for the rest of the discussion. I will get some more detailed GIS maps out to this group after that maybe actually have some camp counts on those locales around the edge of town.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I think, you know, and obviously this was also that single night point in time count in January of this year, but you know, anecdotally, the numbers are up since then. I mean, especially as it relates to, you know, you've seen the governor trying to push for local governments to sweep individuals in different communities. So some communities like San Francisco have started to do that. And so we're now seeing folks being put on buses and trains from other communities and coming to communities that don't have as much of, you know, sort of hard-line enforcement around sweeping of camps. And so we know anecdotally that the numbers are already up here in Yolo and our other, you know, at least in three cities, because yeah, I mean, both in counting. I mean, the homeless services staff for the city of Davis, for example, I know is out, you know, and anecdotally knows that there's already a bunch of additional new sort of camps, and, you know, spread throughout both in the city and probably on the edge too, I'm sure. But anyway, just wanted to sort of just get a little bit more detail around, especially since we're now doing everything via GIS. It would be really good to know, you know, the number 162 is for inside the city limits, but if there are 30 people, you know, right at the edge of the city that are ostensibly in Davis, it would be really helpful to just know a little bit more accurately what those numbers are. So appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I think one quick add-on comment to that as well is we were invited to a meeting last week or 2 weeks back at the UC Davis Police Department that was hosted by the Highway Patrol and Caltrans. And I don't think social services providers were supposed to be there, but we kind of snuck in there. It was all the law enforcement from the county, and we kind of popped our heads in as well. And what we really took away from that meeting is the governor means business, and he is telling Caltrans and Highway Patrol he wants all of the freeways cleared, he wants encampments on state property cleared, he's pulling out all the stops. And so one of their reasons for meeting with us was to basically say, hey, we're probably going to push all of these folks into the cities. Or the county, and to be prepared for it. And so, you know, Davis with I-80 running right down the middle, and I'm sure there's some encampments niched in that we don't even know about, that is also going to add to those numbers that Supervisor Ferricks was talking about. So in addition to other cities that are starting to clamp down and folks are starting to kind of migrate from different cities that are maybe a little less friendly, Caltrans in particular and Highway Patrol will be pushing a significant amount of folks. And there were some pretty well-known encampments along, I'm not sure the exact area, but like along the UC Davis Arboretum, I-80 city, that they were very worried about. And so again, that's something to think about here as well. We did give this update to the Executive Commission on Homelessness last week, and so I think some of your peers may end up sharing that at a future council meeting, but that's something that we're also keeping an eye on.
Yeah, great, thank you. I know you were mentioning the crackdowns. I mean, we had a meeting late last week with our police chief, and he mentioned, you know, since Grants Pass ruling, we've seen, I can't remember the percentages, Mike, but it was a significant jump in tracked camps within city boundaries in July and August. That number has gone up drastically. Right. So I think it's great that we keep it to the forefront and get the information that we need. Supervisor President.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to a discussion we started to have about city-county cooperation. It's going to be essential we work together. This is basically when we have people jumping back and forth between the county and the city. We have to be working together, and those folks have to go somewhere, and providing and make sure that there's shelter opportunities and housing is going to be essential going forward. The county also has been obtaining grants, and some of those grants have gone to other cities, not to Davis. And one of the things that we need to be working on is what are Davis's needs, and how could we address the grant funding issue and provide more assistance to Davis. And then what do we do in these situations? How do we deal, say, with an encampment that's right on the county line? And how do we go about making sure that the folks, particularly Davis people, and the latest one we found most of them were Davis people, how do we get those people in the system and into housing? I had initially thought maybe we could do some type of ad hoc, but what I realized is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the two of you are the housing committee or homeless committee for City of Davis, is that correct? And then Lucas and I for the county. So we can't do it in an ad hoc fashion, I don't think. I can't think of a way to do it, but what we could do is have staff meet on a regular basis and maybe hold a 2x2, a special meeting on homeless issues as we need them, so that staff could be working along, and then we could do a meeting just on the unhoused and how we can work together. That's, at least in my thinking, the best I could come up with. But I think it's important that we have these discussions and our staff are working together on an individual basis.
Yeah, thank you. Any other,
So, thank you for this information. There's a lot of information in
There
here.
is, yeah.
There's,
Yes.
and
This packet's really helpful, yeah.
yes, I'm pleased to see that. So one of the questions I've always asked is like, where are folks coming from? And unfortunately, like that number is like 99 is unknown.
Right.
Is that just because they don't answer that question?
Folks
or-
don't engage, yeah, so they don't have to answer by any means, and it's oftentimes very, it's intrusive, and, folks aren't necessarily happy about you asking them questions. So we do our best to have the volunteers ask those questions, but again, either they were just a visual, so you saw them maybe from afar because it was unsafe, or they just refused to engage, or they just didn't want to answer that question. So it's always a tough one.
And then at other places where we serve our homeless population, is that something that we can get at? Is that something that is asked at like the Respite Center or Paul's Place or Fourth and Hope and places like that? When they do intake for folks, do they?
So there's two different pieces here. So the point in time count generally doesn't ask what services you're linked to. It's a standardized question set from HUD. However, most homeless folks need to be in the continuum of care. We use what's called a VI SPDAT, and a VI SPDAT basically is kind of an assessment of someone that's homeless. And so when they're accessing services, we do a full assessment, and that VI SPDAT theoretically actually has linkages to different programs, has their benefits, what caseworker they're attached to. So the same person answers the survey may not tell us that, but we may know looking from the HMIS systems, acronym soup, I apologize, but the VI SPDAT goes into HMIS. We can tell in HMIS that record on that individual, the detail and kind of where they're linked and where they come from as well. We do find anecdotally 60% plus of folks in the Yolo County homeless spectrum of care are from Yolo County. So there is this myth that folks are, although that could be changing with some of the governor's orders and different things, but generally, as a rule of thumb, folks are from the community that they're in. However, there's always some outsiders and passers through that. We can tell a little more detail on an individual basis. Most of the point in time count data, again, is a voluntary survey that they may or may not want to tell us about.
Okay. So then how do you take this information and use it?
This is more like a general sense, like your average census, right? So it's kind of how you use the census data to map out different educational, income, or employment taxes. This is kind of a snapshot of what homelessness looks like in Davis or in Yolo County. It really scopes your target. So, the easiest way to frame, I guess, the goal in my head is we have 930 folks across the county, and in theory, each one of them, in my mind, should have a case manager attached and should have a housing unit, right, or a shelter unit of sorts. So that's kind of the big picture goal. So for me, if you were like, Nolan, how do we solve this? Big picture, Yolo County, how do we have a case manager assigned to each? And some sort of shelter bed, temporary shelter housing unit for each would be a way to scope kind of the size of your problem. But again, it's just a sentence, it's a snapshot, so you kind of know the scope of the problem that you're attacking.
Yeah, I mean, that is what comes to mind for me as well, is that, a lot of these folks have, some
Right.
must have had one
Right.
at some point.
Right.
And, is Alter Regional maybe needing to do a better job of keeping track of folks and the services that they need and that sort of thing.
Totally, yeah, and I think there is a gap too. I mean, there's just this gap between the street and service, I would say, and it's, unfortunately, there's dozens, if not hundreds of ultra-regional type programs, right? And different agencies or organizations that should be taking care of people. And for whatever reason, people fall through the gaps, the cracks. You really have to have some sort of street outreach or outreach worker that sort of is that connection point that connects that person to the various resources they have, whether that's VA benefits, Department of Rehab, a SSI payee service, whatever. They're just, people fall off. And again, there's no legal obligation to maintain services, right? We can't force them to engage in substance use treatment or mental health treatment. So you have to have someone there that could be a case manager. And that's kind of the problem. For example, in the county, we've got 220 some odd thousand people. We have 3 homeless case managers for the entire county. That's it. I mean, that's all we can afford. It's through grants and a whole hodgepodge of funding. I know the city has a couple. But again, if you're looking at a caseload ratio, ideally somewhere under 30 to 40 per worker, which is probably a little high, 30 or 40 divided by 930, like we need 30 more workers across the county amongst the cities and the county and et cetera, et cetera. So that's part of the gap too, is the workforce doesn't really exist. While they should be connected to all these different agencies, you need someone to kind of be the glue or the connector point in between.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do any of my colleagues have other questions for Nolan? All right, thank you, Nolan.
I think really quickly, per Supervisor Provenza's point or follow-up, I mean, I think what would probably be helpful for staff on both sides is like a goal or a charge or even just meeting and collaborating, like that's great, but it doesn't necessarily give us a goal or a task or so I think part of the problem with homelessness, and we've talked about this before, is it's no one's problem, right? So the state owns a little piece of it, the feds own a little piece of it, the county owns a little piece, the city owns a little piece, and then you've got nonprofits. But if one of the things we'd like to do is actually meet with all the various cities and come up with some shared goals and standards, it would be helpful, I think, if the electeds maybe not today, but maybe you think about this, have a shared target or instruction or goal for the staff, because part of it too is we can get together and talk and be friendly, but we kind of need like this is the north, right, or this is the direction we want you to head. I think that would be helpful at a later date if this group wanted to come up with that.
If we were to do a meeting specific to homeless, could staff bring us, both from the city and the county perspective, some options as to focus that we might have so that we then will have a basis for discussing which way to go?
I think that would be a great idea. And we could do a deeper dive on the services the county offers, a deeper dive on the city services. We can do a deeper dive on this Davis document and really just especially maybe even invite a couple nonprofits to explain what they do and how they do it. Then you'd really have this kind of full, okay, this is what we have today. And it might help identify some gaps for this group to actually come up with some shared goals and kind of common trends. So it probably would take longer than, it'd be a lengthy meeting per se, but I think it could be really helpful if this group was open to that idea.
Well, and we just worked on our homelessness strategic plan. And so I think that it's important that, whatever it is whatever discussions we have are aligned with, where it is that we're saying that we want to go with our
Absolutely.
strategic plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So maybe Mike, you and your team we can chat about that internally, and Gloria and I are on that other subcommittee. Maybe we can talk with county staff, figure out what we can do moving forward. So I think it's a great idea. So we can figure something out. Does that sound good?
Should we try to set a goal for our meeting together to discuss this?
Agenda or trying to come up with a date right now.
Or possibly, if we're ready, like it could be next month. And we don't necessarily meet every month, but we could meet, say, in October on the topic.
I think that'd be fine. It would I'm not sure we have to pay. I would probably leave it to the staff to figure out our, calendar. I mean, just not, just instead of trying to agenda our calendar right now.
Just to get it going, but.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that way, maybe we can have staff work together so we can get something on the books in October. We also have 4 other items on the agenda. We have 5 minutes, so we would just task them with that and we can go from there. Does that sound good to everybody? Amenable to that?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Nolan.
Thank you.
Okay, 6D, informational update about the Walnut Park Library. Welcome, Diana.
Good afternoon, Mayor Chapman, Councilwoman Perdita, and Supervisor Scruggs and Provenza. Diana Lopez, County Librarian. Before I give you my update, I want to give a little shout out to Sarah from the fair because I tabled with my literacy team and we were in the remodeled ag building and it was wonderful. And then also she worked with the county library and also Woodland Public Library to offer free carnival ride tickets to kids who completed the summer reading program. So we're really happy for that partnership, so thank you to her. Okay, so let's see. So this week, we should be finalizing inside materials such as carpet and tile. We're expecting a new samples board this week from our architects. For public art, let's see, we had 68 submissions. Yolo Arts is coordinating that. The committee members reviewed submissions before meeting, and they reviewed the top 10 at the meeting. And there were 5 artists that were selected for submitting some site-specific proposals. And then for some A&E updates, I've actually asked my colleague Ryan Pistakini if he could give those to you. So if I could please turn it over to Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I'm pleased to report that the Board of Supervisors approved plans and specifications for the library yesterday at their board meeting. It's a, oh, okay. How is that?
There you go.
Excellent. And so that's a momentous step to approve the plans and specifications because now we can go out to solicitation. My staff is working diligently and we are issuing the solicitation tomorrow for bids. We anticipate receiving bids back on October 17th and then we'll go to the board with a contract for construction on November 5th. At that point, we'll be working with the contractor to start a construction date in that winter. And then we are off to the races and out throughout this whole time we have remained on time with our attendance schedule back from when we started. Our cost estimate for the construction of the structure alone is $16 million. That is still affordable within our project budget. So we remain on time, on budget, and we're really excited.
That's great, thank you, Ryan. I'll turn to my colleagues for any questions or comments on the Walnut Park update.
We're really excited too.
Thank you.
I was actually able to sign several documents after yesterday's Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm fortunate to serve as chair this year and helping to execute those contracts. So it was like, yes, it's real, it's coming.
And so and thank you, great job, and thanks for being on time and on budget. So that the public will know, and anyone else who's seen the higher numbers, the 21-22 million, that's for everything that goes in the library.
Correct. So that 21, 22, it's right in there. 21.5 is where we last left it at. So what that includes is also the architect and engineering costs. It includes the library collection costs, all the books, all the media. It includes a number of internal furnishings that are separate from the structure. It includes also a contingency. So even though when we started out on this, we knew construction costs are inflating rapidly. And we made an estimate for that. And we also made an estimate for undiscovered conditions. So that contingency is still there. We have a contingency still plotted at about $1 million that if it holds true and the bids come in and we still have that, we can start looking at some add alternates, which include some additional EV charging stations above what code requires. It includes some additional energy efficiency components that are a little more expensive but save energy in the long run. And it also includes some additional solar array as well.
Thank you, Ryan.
And then, he's so much taller than I am. Just as an FYI, Ryan's team installed the future home of Walnut Park Library sign in the park at 2700 Dillard. So we're super excited. So happy to answer any questions.
And then the last piece of that is the ongoing operating expenses for the library. It's more expensive to operate two rather than one, and that's Measure T on the November ballot to address that issue.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as much like you signed the documents, I drove by in the morning when the county team was out there digging holes and putting posts up, and then came by after work, and that puts it into reality when you see that sign up there. It's what we've been talking about for years, so great work, both of you and everyone who's been a part of this heavy lift, so thank you. All right, agenda 6E, Adult Day Healthcare Update, and we'll welcome Dawn Myers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Dawn Myers, Program Director, Yolo Adult Day Health. Another Ryan project. And this project is many years in the making, and I really want to do a shout out to Supervisor Provenza. He and I have been trying to accomplish this for well over 15 years. So the Adult Day Health Center is a project of Yolo County and Dignity Health. This is our 40th anniversary, and when the center was first built, it was the first built-to-purpose Yolo Adult Day Health Center in the state of California by the Yolo County Health Department. And it's always been a partnership with county having the license and operating the building, and then contracting for the service. And since 1998, it's been Dignity Health, and in those 24 years, it's been an incredible partnership. But the need and the demand for the program has only increased, as we know, with the aging population. And so we're really serving older adults, chronically ill adults, individuals with disabilities. Our population does go down as early as 18. And with the demographics being what they are, we've had a huge waiting list for a lot of years now. And so we have been determined to find a solution, which we currently have at Norton Hall, which is at 70 Cottonwood. So just real quickly, oh, it's not showing. There it is. Lots in translation. Thank you so much. I'll try and be fast, but I'm going to go through these slides very fast. But I do want to ensure a foundational understanding of adult day health, because essentially what it is it's taking a nursing home level of care, a nursing home breadth of services, and providing them in a day setting and adding a lot of transportation, because the only way folks are going to come to our program is if we go and pick them up, for the most part. And we primarily target Medi-Cal folks, so we're really serving that low-income, chronically ill person in the community that's at high risk of emergency room, high risk of hospitalizations, and high risk of permanent nursing home placement. And how we do that is through this whole collection of clinical services. And now we're going to go pretty fast. So go ahead to the next slide. This is our sort of our buckets of population, those that are medically frail, cognitively frail. As you can imagine, a lot of our folks have dementia, TBIs, traumatic brain injury, psychiatric conditions, and individuals with developmental disabilities. We get a lot of referrals from ultra-regional as their clients begin to age and struggle in the community. And then, so we have 2 nurses on site at all time. Next. We have a huge rehab program. We have a physical therapist, occupational, and speech therapist on site. And so we are providing a lot of strengthening, preventing falls, and really helping people reach their highest potential. And that is clearly what we do. You know, aging is not for sissies, as is a famous quote. But we see the potential in every participant that comes into our program, whether they're dependent on caregivers at this point, or they're, which is quite a common profile for us, older, low income, living in subsidized housing, and struggling alone. Next slide. Social services, big component, and then the next slide is just to let you know we have a dietitian, we provide lunch, we have therapeutic activities, transportation, and our psychiatric consulting. Next slide. And the way we get paid is primarily through Medi-Cal, Partnership Health Plan, private pay, VA, ultra-regional, and some long-term care insurance. But about 90% of our population is Medi-Cal. That wasn't always the case. It is now because of the Galileo Center, which has really been a wonderful addition to our community and our diversity in what we can offer for our families. So Galileo is part of Yolo Cares. It's here in Davis. It opened a year or so ago. It's social model. It's not clinically based. Therefore, Medi-Cal is not a potential payer for them. The county has been very supportive in helping them build up their program. Building a program census is a 2-year process for the most part. The center's thriving and growing, so we're really proud of that partnership. I was very involved in the development of that. So while our Medi-Cal numbers and our private pay have gone down, that's exactly what we anticipated. And then for the next slide, we do offer a social model. We do have a Cal-AIM ECM program now that's almost 1.5 years old, and it also is really growing. And then we do offer transportation vouchers through the Agency on Aging. And then the last slide is our future. So this is where we're headed. We just signed a contract with the county and Dignity Health just signed a contract to renovate Norton Hall. This is where Ryan has been very busy. As you may know, Norton Hall is the current home of the county ag operation as well as the UC Davis Co-op Extension. So Ryan has been working very hard to relocate those 2 operations, at which point we take ownership of the building December 1. We'll start our renovation work very early in 2025. And with the hope of being completed in the fall, we're hoping to increase our daily census from 52 to 90 a day, and then the connected enrollment then is have 125 people enrolled in our program. And given that space, and who knows, I think we're in a better position to grow if we need to beyond that for the decades to come. It's a $5.5 million project, and I want to give kudos to the City of Davis, who provided $225,000 of that. And so we'll be using that money for our furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We also got close to $3 million from Yolo County. We have $1 million from the Yochidihi tribe. $1 million been raised through our foundation. And then with the added City of Davis, and there's a lot of other sort of supplemental funding going into that program too. So the future's bright for adult day health. People don't want to be institutionalized. People want to take care of their loved ones. People want to live independently and be empowered to do that even if they have a lot of conditions that are challenging. So that's my update. Are there any questions I can answer?
Thank you, Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Supervisor Good.
Well, thank you, that was a great summary, and I know you've worked day and night over the last 15 years to make this a reality.
Yeah, well,
And it's gonna happen.
it's taken the community and it's been Supervisor Provenza's determination, so I will never be, I will always be
And I know
grateful.
your dedication, because I think we were touring a facility in another city, and there was one of the patients who needed some help, and you stopped to help the person while we were on the tour.
Yeah.
It wasn't somebody close to
Yeah.
us, so I know you know
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah, I know what I do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Ferris or Guerra? Comments? Questions?
Well,
Oh.
I was going to ask, I don't know if I missed this, but where are you operating out of right now?
We're at 20 North Cottonwood,
Okay,
right across from DESS. Yeah.
great. And the clients that you get are from all over the...
Oh, I meant to mention that. Yes, they are from all over the county. So you've probably seen our bus running around Davis each morning and afternoon. We pick up, currently we have 10 of our enrollees. So that's about 10% of our population is from Davis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's an important point too, because we have the Adult Day Center on Galileo, but that is not for people with the highest medical need. And that's on a sliding scale. But then there are people in Davis that will utilize adult day healthcare, and then there's people in other communities that will come here. So it's a great partnership.
That's very true.
Provides well.
And we hit most of the corners with our transportation vehicles in the county, with the exception of Dunnigan, as always, and Clarksburg. We can't quite get a vehicle there and get it back in a feasibly, economical way. So those are two sort of untouched areas. But other than that, we head out there. We have got 6 vehicles that do it every day.
That's great. Thank you, Don.
All right.
Okay, we will now move to agenda item 6F, brief updates on projects, and I'll turn to Mike and Mark.
All right, I actually just have one item. It's very brief. Since Nolan did such a thorough overview of the update on Pacifico, he covered all the things that I would have touched base on or asked questions about and more. So thank you, Nolan, for that. So the only other update I have is a real brief one, also in Nolan's wheelhouse on Crisis Now. So Crisis Now, as it's been, the evolution of it has been unfolding, as we all know, and Nolan has been before the city council with us before to provide updates. We actually just, and thank you very much to the county for coordinating this, but we have a meeting, a staff level meeting that's now been scheduled for October 2nd, that where all the cities are going to be getting together with the county in person, with all the city managers, our social services directors, police chiefs, etc., to all get around the table and basically receive an update from the county on the latest and greatest with respect to Crisis Now 2.0, maybe it's 3.0 now. But the latest and greatest, so that we're all on the same page with the same information, we're able to ask questions in that audience and be able to, work expeditiously on next steps and so forth that may be in order. So just thank you very much to the county team for making that meeting happen. I really appreciate it. And so there'll be more to come after that meeting, of course, and we'll report out to our subcommittee and so forth, and I'm sure the other city managers will do the same with theirs. So that's really the only update I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Nothing for me. It is very exciting to see Crisis Now. I think we've been talking about that for a long time. I come from a mental health background, so that one is a bit near and dear to my heart. So I'm glad to see it moving forward.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, any questions or follow-up for my colleagues from this agenda item for staff? Okay, seeing none, we are now going to open public comment for agenda item number 6. Do we have anybody here who would like to make public comment? All right, seeing none, we will now move to agenda item number 7, Board of Supervisors and City Council communications. Do any of my colleagues have anything they would like to share with the group?
Oh, just thank you everyone for a good meeting, and I'm looking forward to working on the homeless issue together.
Anything on this side? Good.
No, I just will echo that, and it sounds like there's so much that's happening, and we'll have to see that stuff moving forward, hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, agenda item number 8, upcoming meeting dates and chair designation. Looks like we have 3 of our next meetings scheduled, November 13th, 2024, with Supervisor Provenza chairing that meeting. Into the new year, January 8th, Councilmember Partida, and then March 12th, Supervisor Frericks. Does anybody have any concerns or questions on those meeting dates? Or chairs, speak now for hold your peace. No? Okay. We are at agenda number 9, which is adjournment. So thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you staff and everyone from the public for being here. We are adjourned.